what is church? What is church? Who is church for? What is church supposed to be about? What is a church supposed to be doing? Why is it a lot of times seemingly hard to come to church or to find a church? What makes a good church or a bad church? Why do churches have music and sermons and all the funny stuff that churches do? I got a whole slew of questions about church that I think are good questions to ask and to think through. Do you remember your first experience ever in church? I can remember mine. I grew up in one of these families where we went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, oftentimes Monday night, Tuesday night, definitely Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday. We were there like anytime the church doors were open. We were there. My earliest, it was a lot of church growing up for me. I remember just dreading having to go growing up. I've been a part of a number of churches. I remember I didn't go to church for a long time when I was in high school and first part of college till I became a Christian. Then what got me going to church, I got a job at a church, so then I figured I had to go. And as part of this church, and it was a smaller church here in San Diego, and they had this big piano on stage, and I don't know anything about music, but I think it was definitely out of tune. And this lady that led us in song, she definitely couldn't sing on key. And so that was very, very painful experience. I got a job a couple of years later after that as a college pastor at a church, and lo and behold, a few years later, actually got fired from that church, from that job. So I've been dismissed from a church as well. I got a lot of experience when it comes to church. I don't know what your experiences have been in your life regarding church. I think thinking through these questions is really important for us in our day and age, because the reality is that fewer people are going to church really in our country than ever before. Been reading a book this week titled Churchless, and it's got some pretty interesting statistics. It talks about in there that only about 40% of Americans report regularly going to church. But then when you look into those statistics, most of them are CEO Christians, Christmas, Easter, and a few other Sundays. So really, it's only about 20% of Americans that regularly worship with God's people on a weekly basis. 60 years ago, think about the change here, that rate was 80%. 80%. It's changed a lot. Journalists and researchers from a number of different newspapers and organizations, they have collectively begun calling this the Great Decline in America about church. Every year it's reported that 4,000 churches close down and shut their doors. 2.7 million church members leave or fall into inactivity in their church every year. Half of all churches do not report having added any new members in their church in the last year. And of the ones that do, most of them are what they call transfer growth. They were people who were part of another church but made a change for one reason or another and then now started going to this new church. Does that sound crazy? Is that kind of shocking? It kind of should jar us a little bit. I think it's kind of actually a little bit depressing, because essentially what the data is telling us is that the popular perspective of people is that church sucks. And we're really not into church. We don't like church. And it shouldn't surprise us, actually, I think, because here's the deal. Probably everyone in this room, almost everyone's been a part of another church before. You've been to another church before coming to this one. If this is the only church that you're here and it's the only church you've ever been to today, congratulations, you win. I don't know what the prize is. Go see the Connect booth. They'll hook you up with something special. It was in the video. Now, that's not all bad that we've been at different churches and made changes here or there. I'm not suggesting that you should go back to the church that you came from, or that if you're part of this church that you can never leave, or anything like that. There's good reasons at certain times in your life to make a church change. The reason why I'm bringing all of this up is because I'm not so sure that Jesus would disagree with people who have left churches and as a result have a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to church. Jesus, in the story in Luke that we're going to look at today, he has a very bad church experience. And so he sets out really to revolutionize it and to recenter the church's place and purpose and power. So today, if you've had a bad church experience in your life, like maybe even just coming today was kind of challenging and difficult, there's because of some, church just triggers some certain memories in you. There's a few things that I want you to know. First, Jesus knows what that's like. He's had experiences like that, bad church experiences. He knows what you feel. Second, there's a lot of other people here who know what that's like and know what you feel and going through that. Another book I've been looking at this week and reading is this book titled Unchristian by David Kinnaman. And in this book, he talks about the perspective of people who have left churches and don't go to church anymore, don't consider themselves Christians anymore, or aren't Christians yet, and just what they think about Christians and churches. And here's what he says. He says what most people think about churches and Christians, that they're hypocritical. So they say one thing and how they live is actually something really different. That they're insincere, where they're not really genuine or real. They're just trying to manipulate you in order to get something out of you, to get you saved or to get your money. Anti-homosexual, so that Christians and churches, they hate people who are gay or bi or transgender. That they're sheltered, that Christians and churches, they're really unintelligent and they're kind of out of touch with reality in the real world. They're too political, that what Christian churches are about is that they're really about becoming a Christian nation and a certain set of political views. That they're judgmental, that they think they're better than everyone else. That's his list. He's got a chapter on each one. I'd probably add to that list racist as well. A lot of people think churches and Christians are pretty racist. I can assure you today that none of the things we're going to see from Jesus and what the church is supposed to be about has anything to do with some of these things. In fact, some of these things are the very issues that Jesus takes on and confronts. That's the second thing. If you've ever thought any of those things, you're not alone. A lot of other people here in this room probably feel like that and thought those things. Third thing I want you to know, this may be the most important, is that if you've had a bad church experience, it really is my prayer and my heart that somehow today through the service and through God's word and through the sermon, that Jesus would extend healing. I kind of need some healing too myself. I was driving to church this morning thinking about what I was about to preach on and just started remembering some of the painful things I've gone through. We need healing. I believe that there is healing in Jesus so that church actually can become one of the most treasured things and parts of our lives, that we love Jesus' church like he does.